Are you in a business where trust and credibility are quite important? You might have a high-end service or high-end product where people have to really think about who they're going to invest their money in to help solve their problem. You're going to want to listen to this episode today because you're really going to enjoy finding out how one mountain climbing adventurer has built a trust-based cycle into his business. Keep listening.
You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏.
Hello there, my friend. Welcome back if you are a regular. If you are new to me or the show, thank you for choosing to listen to us today. This is a place where we get really comfortable and we start to chat about all the ways in which your personal brand meets the humans you serve. I'm 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏, your host on this conversational journey, and boy, do I have a pretty cool episode for you today. We are continuing in my mini-series where I bring on people on the show to share how they're faring out in the world with their personal brands and what that looks and feels like for them. So today I've invited someone who I've been following along for quite a few years now, and he caught my eye probably just under 10 years. I was just counting, that's a long time, when he founded and ran his first business, and I've been watching his progress over time since then. We've only just gotten to meet in real life, and I'm pleased to say he's one of the most down-to-earth chaps that I've met in a long time, and he's really passionate about the work that he does, and it literally oozes out of him when he speaks, which you will soon find out. So let me give you a bit of an introduction to him, and then we'll jump straight into today's conversation. So Jack Fleckney is a former Royal Marines commando who is best known for taking on some of the hardest challenges on Earth, like rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, completing the toughest foot race in the world across the Sahara, kayaking the length of the most dangerous swim in the world, and setting a 24-hour world records. All of this means he's a highly detail-orientated and experienced outdoor professional who thrives in extreme environments, and today has leveraged that in running a business that specialises in designing, organising and leading life-changing adventures for his clients when he's not working in his business or taking part in extreme physical charity challenges. He enjoys getting away to the countryside or any nearby mountain with his wife, Jess. They live about 20 minutes away from me here in Northamptonshire, which is dead in the middle of England for all our American listeners. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you very much. Nice to jump on finally, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏, as well, yeah.
So, Jack, I don't know about our listeners, but it's not every day that I get to meet someone who does what you do. Out local networking, right? So I thought maybe we could kick off the conversation so people can get to know a little bit of your background if they don't already, because they can get a feel for, what these genius gifts are that you do today and what you're known for.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's probably a bit of a melting pot of lots of different things. For me, it probably my first ever introduction to the outdoors, because as a kid, I played in the garden and things, but never did anything really that adventurous. And I did the Three Peaks with some friends, and that was my first ever kind of introduction to the outdoors. And I turned up to Ben Nevis, which is the highest mountain in Scotland, which is, it's not a crazy walk up, but I turned up with shorts and a t-shirt, and I remember being so cold on the summit that they had to go and get inside this little shelter to try and warm up at the top, and that was my first introduction. I had this rubbish tent, and it wasn't even waterproof, and I was soaking wet all night. It was so cold, but it was I just love the whole event, that side of it. And but 100% for me, where it all really did kick off is where I decided I was going to join the military. I was at the time playing rugby for a professional rugby team and had this aspiration of becoming a professional rugby player. And I was 16, living down in London, and they basically come to me at the end of my contract and just said, look, you're not quite good enough, and offered me some of the pathways for rugby, but I kind of already decided I was going to do something different, because I think, hand on heart, I kind of knew that I probably wasn't going to be able to really make it to the level I was aspiring to get to. So I've been reading some books, been reading Andy McNab books, and had a bit of an interest in the military. And my stepfather was also in the Navy, so I ended up signing up and joining the Royal Marines, and that was 100% where it all sparked off for me. And then I suppose from there it's kind of evolved into what we're doing now, as you said, around 12 years later.
And you did say to me in our prep session that there was a lot, because I think when people hear Royal Marines or the commandos, we know it's hectic and we know it's hardcore, right? But when we were talking in our prep session, what became clear to me was like the actual skill set that you had to gain while you were going through that training, I think is part of the reason why you're so good at what you do now, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I was young as well, so very influential. So I was 17, 18 when I went through selection, and the selection for the Royal Marines is the longest basic training in the world. So it's 9 months, 32 weeks long. And, I look back now, and to be honest with you, I spent most of the time just scared of messing up and making some mistakes. But you do look back now and think, oh, that was so good. And I'm sure if I went through it now, it'd be a completely different experience for me. But I loved it, learned a lot. You do so much. You obviously do the main thing they're looking for when you go through this style of military training is whether you want it or not, and whether you've got the right mindset. And to be honest with you, they're just looking for good people. They're going to be good team players that are willing to work hard and I think the biggest thing is deal with pressure. They put you in a lot of like high pressure scenarios, and how you react is essential. Obviously, with the military, you get put in these sudden high pressure scenarios. Those of you that can stay calm and make good decisions are going to go really far. That's kind of the thing I picked up, and I suppose I've continuously trained that with some of the stuff we've done.
And also you mentioned a bit about logistics as well, and your navigation skills, and they're obvious for you, but for people listening, they might not always think about all those realms. But that kind of helped you as well, where the other bit to your story about getting closer to where you are now with your Legend Expeditions, which is your company at the moment, is how you were gravitating towards these really tough challenges. Talk us through a little bit of that, because I think that's going to help us bridge to where we are today.
Yes, it definitely does. Yeah, I came back from my last deployment out in Afghanistan, and I think I was kind of done, and I was ready to move on and have a different challenge. So I handed my notice in, not having any idea what I was going to get into, and I had to work a year's notice. And during that year, I basically had a board up on my wall and was coming up with ideas of things I was going to try and do. And at the time, I was really into fitness and training, so I was competing in fitness competitions. I'd won a few competitions and thought, well, maybe I could go into coaching, and then that kind of evolved into maybe I could set my own gym up in Northamptonshire. So then I spent about 9 months on this wall just trying to think of a name, and then realised that, oh my God, I haven't done anything else when it comes to planning this business when I was very close to leaving. And then I with some quite big setbacks, initially was setting the gym up. I eventually got one open, and whilst running the business, I just realised that I actually wasn't, apart from running a business, I wasn't pushing myself outside of that. And I've been used to physically pushing myself. So that's where I thought, well, let's do some different challenges. I suppose the first one started off by doing 24 hours on an assault bike. That was very rogue and random. It was supporting another gym and their charity event, and it was very last minute that I did that, and then saw kind of the awareness that brought, and then I started to plan other ones, because the moment you say something like 24 hours or a certain thing, people buy into it and they think that's going to be really tough. And for us, the central goal was fundraising. So if the more we could fundraise, the better. So yeah.
Yeah, so talk to me about the Canary Islands to the West Indies, because this one was kind of crucial to you figuring out of what you actually wanted to do going forward, right?
Yeah, it was, because that again, that's kind of a bit of like going fast forward 4 or 5 years of the gym business. I actually sold the business, and I realised during this when I sold the business, I'd actually lost quite a lot of confidence in myself, because the sale of the business was really difficult, very tough, and obviously I took an immediate step back from what was my purpose at that time. 5 years of my life working from 4 a.m. until 10 p.m. pretty much every day, sleeping at the gym. That was my purpose, and then it suddenly just disappeared. And I was very, very lost. I was doing the charity work, but it was here, there, and everywhere. So it wasn't really like a job or a purpose at all. And yeah, so with the row, it was a really random. I'd obviously been doing my own expeditions, and I suppose people were starting to hear about some of the things I'd done, and I was very, very lucky. 2 brothers that had this idea of rowing across the Atlantic had bought this boat. They had the capital to do the expedition, and they reached out to me and said, look, would you want to join the team? We need someone to help us get across. So I was very, very, very lucky. I think it's probably good, right place, right time. Because if you said to me, right, let's do it next year, I wouldn't have the money to be able to do it. So I was very, very lucky. And the whole idea is, you row across the Atlantic in this 20-foot rowing boat. So it's 20 foot by about, I'd say, 3 or 4 foot wide. It's not very wide at all. And I had about a year to prepare for that. So the caveat really was that the lads were run very, very, very successful businesses and very, very busy. So this was not their forte. So it was very much, could you join the team? And the kind of way it was, well, I'll make sure that all the logistics, I'll make sure that during the trip that we manage it and lead it. And the only rule I had really was, going back to navigation, was a lot of people that try and attempt this, or if they sail across the Atlantic on a sailing boat, they usually have a weather router. And the only thing for me was, no, I don't want a weather router. I want to do all the navigation ourselves from inside the boat. So we had a map up on inside the cabin that I'd be doing the navigation off and marking off where we're going to go as we go through it.
Oh, goodness. But that is like a project in itself, isn't it? So that's where your planning came in, your logistical, the whole, and then managing all of you guys on one small little boat.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
For 40 days.
Yeah. That was actually the biggest challenge, genuinely. It really was, because you got the other lads have big personalities and leaders in their own right. So obviously, I definitely had to change my leadership style, which I think I've probably got better at with time. When you're in the military, you pretty much get to you learn one leadership style.
Yeah.
Often that won't work with certain personality types. In this boat, it definitely wouldn't have worked. So yeah, I definitely had to change tact with the way I was going to lead. But I loved the challenge, and I was really lucky to do it with them because they're great guys.
Yeah. And you'd also done a bit of, like you said, okay, yes, you sold the gym business, and then you did a bit of the freelance adventure guide. Well, talk us through a little bit how you then decided, okay, you got the confidence now of doing that rowing challenge, but also by you doing some of that freelance work, you got a bit of an idea, didn't you, of the kinds of things you wanted to do and what you didn't want to do?
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I've done that in the previous business as well. I'd kind of got my foot into the industry and seen what was going on. When I was doing the charity work, I was basically watching my bank balance just disappear very, very quickly.
For sure.
And at the time, like I said to you, I felt really, really lost. I wasn't sure how I was going to earn money, what I was going to do. And to kind of keep things ticking over in the lead up towards this row, I started guiding for other companies. So, we did trips out to all sorts, to jungles of Borneo, out for a different place in Africa. And in that process, I started to learn how other businesses were delivering these trips. And then during the row, it took 40 days, just under 40 days to get across. You had so much time to think. And the biggest thing for me was, it was just basically a load of time of self-reflection, which I'm not very good at.
It forced you, though.
Yeah, it forced me to do it. And also conversations, obviously, if you're with someone for 40 days like that, and you're so intense, like, you're sleeping 3 hours a day, probably 3-4 max in like 1 hour blocks. And you're so, like you said, you're so close together that actually we had so many deep conversations about like business and life and things, and it was a bigger wake up call for me that I'd actually, during that, I kind of realised I'd lost a lot of confidence in myself to go, actually I could do this myself now. So really, I remember getting to land and being like, right, we're on.
I'm
ready.
ready.
I need to do this now. Yeah. So what it did was, I realised that the things that some businesses were doing really well in the adventure travel space, and then what I thought, or what I think they were lacking, whether it be, like you said, logistical things, and then started to build a bit of a plan. And the plan started off by delivering trips, Kilimanjaro, working out in East Africa, and then we evolved it to some other offerings as well.
Nice. So I think what we're getting from your story is that you've actually, you've had to shift and change, your message of what it is that you've done, because you're not, Jack the Royal Marine anymore, and then you're not Jack the gym owner anymore. You've had to shift over time. And I know for me it was tricky moving my own message on when I shifted or reshaped my own business, all for work, because in my early years of work, we didn't have social media. So like when I left self-employment to go into self-employment, there wasn't this huge issue which we have today of, having to self-promote yourself using content marketing and social media and whatnot. So it's been a lot more rife over the last 10 years. So I know for you that would have been a thing, right? So I had to make a conscious decision when I changed. But I changed businesses, one, but secondly, I've had to also shift what my specialism has been over the years as well. So, but for you, you've also had to shift and change, as we've heard. But you said a little bit before about with the gym business, it was difficult because that was your main driver, was getting up in the morning, you'd be in the gym 24/7, and then 5 years, bang, nothing's going on. So, but now that you're over that, and now we're sitting where we are now, how do you feel now about saying what it is that you're doing now compared to back then?
That's a really, really good question, and obviously it's very relevant to personal brand, to all the things you do.
Yeah.
How did you find it doing the switch over when you went from one to another?
The one big change was from franchise consulting. I changed. It was literally black and white, which is almost easier. So I go, I'm no longer doing franchising. I'm now the social media person, because that's what my agent was initially. I actually had to stop doing the networking I was doing, and literally I literally made a black and white line, if that makes sense. And then even like within my LinkedIn profile, I got really specific in my LinkedIn profile going, I've wound down this business. I'm not doing this. I'm only doing this now.
Okay.
So that was easy because it was black and white. And I actually stopped going out and stopped marketing myself for a window of time, so that when I did go back, I try to have one-to-one conversations with people first to kind of get my feeling, and then go back out again. You know?
Yeah, most definitely. Mine probably wasn't as drastic as that, in the sense of mine was probably a bit of a gradual change, and I think mine is probably a bit of a mix of things I'd already done in the past.
Yes.
I think you know why? It's actually after our conversation we chatted last time. I ended up thinking, God, I haven't updated my LinkedIn ages, so I went on there and changed it after some of the things you were saying. Because I've not put anything. Obviously, we put random posts on, but if you read the bio, it said something completely different about me. So no, I did. Yes, mine's been a little bit more gradual, and you could watch the story of it happening. What I've always tried to do, and I say I've always tried to do, I didn't realise I was probably doing this until recently, but I've kind of like grabbed whatever my passion has been, and then gone, let's try and make this into something. Just because I have to, I want to be motivated and passionate about what I do. So, and I suppose that then kind of, I think that kind of, I probably said oozes out of me a little bit, because then I don't, for instance, we're all in now on working out in Tanzania, and if I'm probably boring Jess, my poor wife, is talking about Tanzania and reading books about it in the evenings and sending emails here, there, and everywhere about it. So it has happened kind of just organically, and I think I'd like to think that I probably haven't looked back and thinking, oh, this is who I am, this identity. I think who I am has probably just been more so the kind of person I am, the personality, my personality.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of the characteristics of what you're doing is you've always been very physical. I think the thing that didn't match with the gym thing is that you were bloody inside all the time. You could have really done with being outside, because you're the outside guy, So I think everything else you've been doing anyway was Jack, regardless. If there's anything that didn't fit the picture, it was the gym. The gym thing actually wasn't Jack, whereas you were doing outside of that, you were doing all of these charity challenges, also with, with the kids as well. I just loved the one you did with, going up the mountain with the wheelchair and stuff like that.
Albert,
with little Albert. It was so sweet, So I think that part of you has always kind of shone through in the background. So I think the only puzzle piece that it probably didn't fit at some point was the shy fit, but you've always been Jack.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, in hindsight, now running the gyms, I really enjoyed the challenge of it, because when we first set it up, it was it was great in terms of being bottom of the pile. I literally had no idea what I was doing. I opened the gym up with no website, no marketing, and I was like, I realised,
what am I doing?
Yeah, well, I remember my mum came over to help with the open day. We did an open day, and she made tons of coffees ready for people to come in. And I was like, she's optimistic, and we literally had 10 people turn up on the open day. All my fault. And I enjoyed the challenge of learning how to operate a business, how to do I say I enjoyed accounts. I don't know many people that do enjoy accounts. I definitely don't, but I learned about them, and then I enjoyed that process of building the business. But 100% towards the end, I did find it. I did start to get bored, and that was the reason for the switch, and started going, okay, this is probably not quite the right role for me. I also thought there's other people that would do a much better job of running this business than I would do. Hence why I then obviously sold some of it and passed some of it over as well.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your comfort zone around being the face of your business, right? So with 𝗧𝗛𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘, we said when we were chatting in our prep section, there's obviously, like everybody else, when you're first starting up, you are the man, you are the face, you are everything.
Yeah.
And now, moving into legend now. So how is your comfort level today in being the face of the business?
Yes, I suppose very good because the nature of what we do is very, very positive that is there. So, if you want to come out and climb Kilimanjaro, which is, the highest mountain in Africa, it's nearly 6,000 meters high. It's going to be, there's elements of danger involved and things. So rather than just booking behind an empty website, the fact that you can do a call with me like this and we can discuss the mountain, learn about it. And when you arrive in country, I'm going to be there at the airport waiting to pick you up. It creates this whole like security blanket. So yeah, definitely. But the biggest challenge then is obviously scaling those things, which is what I found with the gyms. The moment we had a moment we had personal brand behind the gyms, it was really, really hard with the scaling it quickly because people get used to a certain delivery style, whether it be me at the gym all the time or delivering the class, and all of a sudden I wasn't. So that was probably something that I made a mistake of and probably should have very, very quickly brought in the personal brands of the other
The
employees
staff.
of the
Yeah.
staff that
Yeah.
we did, but probably should have, I
Too
either
late.
should have done it too quicker, more aggressively. So yeah, with this now, we're now in our kind of period of business. We're just over a year in now of
Yeah.
operating properly, that we're still kind of
Yeah.
finding our feet a little bit and deciding on what pathway we take of how we deliver that.
Yeah, exactly. Because the issue is you've got that trust-based sales cycle, like you were saying. But also the other thing I did wonder when we did discuss this, I thought, okay, but what if, because Sam is your partner, right? So if Sam can't take calls, you're the only one who can take calls, but then Sam's the one that takes them out on the mountain. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. There's it's not something that's going to happen next week. So because it's going to be something
No,
that's going to happen in months' time, there's an
slowly.
opportunity
But you
for
got
one
to
of us to
plan
build
for
a
that, all of that,
relationship.
don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, like we've built a whole customer journey of what we think would be the
nice.
perfect pathway for them.
Yeah,
So that starts off with with a call, a phone call. Sometimes people don't like to do them, so we'll do like emails,
yeah,
and then it rides through multiple different pathways of emails, welcome packs they get through the post from us, and then
yeah.
we have a group call before we head out, and then they've got us on WhatsApp, on our business WhatsApp,
Okay,
as they're traveling, so we can track if they've had any flight issues, and then we meet them on the approach to when they
nice.
exit the airport.
Yeah,
But yeah, most definitely, one of our challenges is managing those things. But I actually think more so, I would. One thing I learned with the gym business was not to put yourself into a role that is not good for you. So when I found myself doing like being a managing director, doing accounts and doing managing, it wasn't my strength. I should have probably been on the gym floor meeting people, and it's the same
yeah,
with this business now. So I do not plan to be doing a lot of
yeah,
the other administrational tasks. My role will probably be
yeah,
taking the trips and speaking to the clients in the lead up and being
yeah.
there for them. That's kind of probably where we're going to change what we
Yeah, but I
did
mean,
last time.
you're only a first year in, isn't it? And then
Yeah,
because I'm still a firm believer of you never delegate what you're not willing to do yourself.
yeah,
And by you having done stuff, you've set up the processes, like you said, and your touch points in your journey. So when you do recruit, you'll recruit better because you'll know what you're recruiting for and you know what they actually need to get done in a day.
yes,
So
most
okay,
definitely.
that's very good though. We talked a little bit in our prep call about you on camera. Um, talk the listeners through how comfortable you are actually being on camera, and we just go from there because I just want them to. Not everybody is as comfortable as the next person. Everybody's different, so I just wanted you to share how do you feel about being on camera.
Okay, yeah, I don't mind it at all actually, as long as it's something that's like well aligned with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I enjoy being on camera if I'm talking about things that I'm passionate about. If it's something else, then not so much. It's definitely been a trained skill because obviously the moment a camera comes onto you, especially if you're sat there being interviewed or something, when I first did it, you find your heart rate going up a bit, and then you find yourself like being different. And I was a bit like, why am I being different when the camera comes out?
what is going
So
on?
yeah, and I actually think from watching previous things and learning about them, authenticity is so important. So just being able to be yourself. But I think you only get that actually from experience, isn't it? It's like, it's like anything. It's like your job when you first got into it. You didn't know much, and you've learned and learned and learned, and now you've got much better at it. Probably the same as doing this podcast, right? Because I think you've done a lot of them now, haven't you? How many have you done?
You're 64 now.
64 now. There you go. So probably if we went back and listened to number one, like
do not do that.
Yeah, exactly. So So
no, it's true. It's flexing a muscle, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it makes a big difference. But I've definitely found that if I do it with something that I'm passionate about, so much easier. So much easier.
I think what's nice about the thing that you do is that because it's experiential, I love all that video work that you're doing now, because it tells that whole story and of what people can expect when they physically see it. But you're in it, so I think it's almost like you don't even have to talk to camera because you're just in it, leading, showing people out there doing the experience. So I think that's helpful in the work that you do. Me, not so much. Like I can't do a video of me doing a personal brand strategy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you give away all your secrets as well when you say, most definitely. Actually, in an ideal world for us in the future is we'd literally have a camera person follow us around the whole time, and then because then it would just be picking up all that organic, all that real stuff that happens on trips. And I think people prefer that. I think the whole sit down what would you call it, setup videos, people aren't that into. They know it's advertising straight away. We said when we started running our social media page was that we wanted to be more about factual storytelling. So you go on there and you're going to learn something about wildlife, or you're going to go on there and learn about what route to do on the mountain, or what happens if this happens, and then you can meet all our team members as well. There's no sales on there at all. Occasionally we'll put a story out that will be like, these dates are now available, which is more so a small call to action, but it's very much like just factual and interesting.
You still gotta ask for the sale, Jack, and I will say it. You just need a balance. You still gotta ask for the sale. So tell me, now that you've done all of these different businesses and you're at where you are now, how would you define personal brand? And how have you made it work for you?
That's a really, really difficult question. How do I decide? I think it's probably just people's perception of you, isn't it, online? That's probably the way I think about personal brand. It literally is that, because I know some people that their personal brand, and I know who they actually are, and it's sometimes can be two very different things. But yeah,
it's not the point. It's not the point.
I know it. I know it's not the point. And honestly, it really does roll me up a bit, because it's quite easy, isn't it, with online, just to be jumping in and saying you are something now. But yeah, to me, realistically, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask with that particular question, because it's not so much of a motivational tool for me, and you're going to tell me off now because I know how important personal brand is.
No. But think about personal brand, and I keep trying to say this to people, is it's not a new thing. Think Cleopatra, think Caesar. They did not have social media and online. What you did say to me in your prep session, because maybe you were thinking clearer then, you said it's actually the recognition of you or your reputation as the person behind the brand.
Yes, most definitely. I think something maybe I should be doing better with that is I think I've got to put more things out there, because I don't put very much out there at the minute. It's more so, I should do this. And I've had that in the past, working with different brands, of not pushing out enough content for personal brand, especially where social media works now. But yeah, I suppose for me, it's been lower down the priority list. But now with this business, we're seeing actually it's really, really important to do that even more now. We've noticed, I think, even just over the last year, every single business is all moving towards personal brands. Who's the owner? Who are the staff members? What's their story? And people are buying into that a lot more.
Well, it's just, you want to know who you're doing business with.
Yeah.
Ultimately, so I think it's more that, and don't use the word should, otherwise it ends up being like a task that nobody wants to do, right?
Yes,
so I think it's more a matter of, actually, you're very busy, Jack. Ultimately, you are very busy. Right. So it's actually about finding that happy medium between the things you're passionate about. And if you have got people around you that can help out with things, they can cherry pick the things. But the thing where a personal brand strategy comes into play and for those listening as well, is where you actually just take some considered time to figure out what that is. Like, where are your guardrails? What do you talk about? Jess, do you talk about dogs? Do you talk about, if you've got children? You talk about things that are actually right and align with you, but you also decide which of the things you're not going to. And then those kind of things help you to then work out, actually, I can quite easily talk about these things. And actually, we're already doing that in this other place in our business. Let's snap from the pictures and some of the content from there. And my story as Jack, because you've got loads of story. I mean, I did loads of online research for you, and I've got loads of stories just from reading the online research, you know. So you've already got lots of little stories. And it's not should, it's, you know, it's important for trust, right? And integrity.
Yes, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it's not right or wrong. Just don't say should, because otherwise it makes it wrong. No. So, right. So we talked quite a bit about the trust-based cycle. Let's just see. And you did actually just raise this bit about perception. So what do you think the perception people have at the moment of you and of the business? What would you say the words that come to mind that you're hoping people are getting from what you guys are putting out there already?
Yeah, so what we're trying to aim for is really, really high trust and very, very clear that we're gonna do a lot of wraparound care for you. So if you know, we know, even if you come out on holiday to come for a safari, say, we know that's a lot to think about, and what we want to do is basically cover every single detail. So all you have to do is just jump on the flight, and we're going to be there on the other side. Everything's going to go perfectly.
Bring the clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Although you say that, but I have had one person turn up with no clothes at all, and we had to fully kit them out within 12 hours before they went on the mountain. Yep. So
that goes back to your journey to go. By the way, you need to bring these things.
Yeah. Which no, I'd like to clarify. We definitely detail them that, but yeah, that our goal now is like there's a huge base of businesses that currently offer this like low level, cheap offering. We've come in and gone, right, we're going to improve everything on the mountain. We're going to improve all the small bits about the safari, how the admin, even right down to like we talked about the logistics of like time. You know, there's definitely going to be someone with a nice vehicle picking you up. They're never going to be late. The timings always match what we're supposed to do. On the mountain, we have the best chefs. We have the best tents, the sleeping situation. We bring showers and toilets up with us to make everything as comfortable as possible for you. And actually, the main reason we do it is to increase your summit success. So originally we did it because we were like, right, the summit success, say, on Kilimanjaro is lower than what websites say. It usually sits at about 80%. So that means 1 in 5 people won't summit. And traditionally that's due to acclimatization or it's due to being ill. So we were like, well, how do we fix those two things? Right, routes we do. Medical intervention, how the team are medically trained to look after the team, how we track it, oxygen, food, sleep. Sleep's so important, hydration is so important. So we literally looked at all the details and then built the model around that. And then what it's ended up becoming a little bit was actually, well, we're just more of a luxury climb than the other competitors. So, but it is all tailored around wraparound care. We'll look after you from start to end. And I'd like to think if you look at the reviews, that kind of shows what we've done over the last year.
Yeah, and I think from your content, like if I took as an outsider looking in, I mean, I know you, but just if I look at your social media, go, right, what do I get from the social media and also from the website? I know you're redoing all of that stuff, but for me, it's the element of when I look at the faces of the people, not just you, but the faces of the people, your clients that are actually in the group, you know, I think that just says it all. There's lots of smiles, there's lots of sweating when they're like having a tough time or something, but the element is the togetherness, and you can see that you're looking after them within the video footage, and then within socials as well. What I really like are those stories that you get from the people who did it and got there and did the thing, and they can tell their stories. And it's through their words that everybody else will get this element of, we were looked after, we had a great time, we can't wait to create our next adventure. So I think you're doing the right things, my dear.
We're getting there. We're on the right path. Yeah, the original name for the business Legend is because we want people to create their own legend, their own story. So that's where the name comes from. So I'm glad you said that.
Yes, there it is. So, Jack, if you had to describe Jack in the flow, where time just disappears and you're your happiest and you're in your genius zone, what does that look and feel like for you?
No distractions is number one. There's too many distractions for me. So yeah, no distractions. Doing something that like I'm really, really fueled on. I've probably usually got a cup of coffee as well involved. For me, usually like I'm properly in my flow on mountains on expeditions, and sometimes occasionally I find it when I'm sat on a laptop, but only a small percent of the time. But for me, genuinely, it's when I'm like I talk about getting in a flow state during these challenges, and what happens is I'm quite make it in a simple format. Let's say, for instance, like when I did the 24 hours on that 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘, you break it down. And I broke it down into 6 hour blocks, and in those 6 hour block, 1 hour blocks. So mentally, you're not thinking I've got 23 hours to go. I'm thinking I've got this next hour to go. Yeah. But then what happens during that is that when you get more and more fatigued or you get more challenged, you end up becoming way, way more focused on the small things. So like, for instance, on the skier, you end up just thinking about that pull on the ski, and that's it. And that's when I find yourself really in the flow state, because you can be like that for ages and not even realize where you are, and you're just going, and so for me it's when I'm hyper focused on just one small detail of something, and the rest of the things don't really matter to me whatsoever. For me, that I do that when I'm probably doing something that's challenging, or I'm doing something that's probably really my skill set. So yeah, when we're on the mountain guiding, I'd probably say that is definitely where I find my flow state.
Nice. Gosh, Jack, thanks. It's been really good to have you on today. I love the work that you guys are doing, and I think the video content that you create now really helps people to fully understand the opportunity you're actually creating for people who are really keen on going on a big adventure and they just can't get their heads around how to tackle making it happen. Plus, you work really hard, on building those relationships, instilling the trust in people, and you've got this really solid foundation of knowledge, expertise, and energy as well. And you also have this inbuilt desire to give people the experience of their lifetime.
That's very, very kind of you.
You're a great example of someone who's just managed to just do what he loves, make a living from it. I realize building a business is hard. Doesn't mean we're flush, but building a business is hard. But you're managing to make a business out of something that you actually love. And you're managing to communicate that with the outside world, which not everybody can do very well as well, But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to chat with me, Jack.
I know, it's really kind. Well, I appreciate you, Shelley, reaching out to me as well, and asking and also showing interest in what we're doing. It's really appreciative. And the more that we can keep spreading what we're up to, and I've really learned. And even when we grabbed that coffee last time,
Yes.
as I said, I picked a number of things I wrote down on my notepad and then went away and worked on. So
that's impressive. I'm glad.
I appreciate your advice as well.
So if there's anybody that wants to get in touch or follow what you guys are doing, where's the best place for them to do that?
So probably I'd say our main social media channel is on Instagram, which is Legend Expeditions, and then also mine is Jack Fleckney, either that or you can go on LinkedIn as well. Here's a question. I've got a question about LinkedIn. Can I ask you quickly? If that's all right.
Yes,
Is there an etiquette to connecting with people? Is that, or can you just connect with anybody, or is it do you follow? Because I've seen there's connecting and there's following.
There's following. Yeah.
What's the main difference?
The main difference is you're just not then connected to them, and you're just literally following their updates, right? So, etiquette. You see, I'm not a number gatherer, so I don't just connect to anybody, because I'm old school, where I feel like you get judged by the company you keep, and if someone's really dodgy and they're trying to connect with me and I just accept it, somebody else might be judging me. That's my freak out. I tend to keep my connections to. I think you can connect if you're wanting to broaden your audience and you're not too fussed, then obviously just, connect with people. But I like people to introduce themselves. So I get a little bit ratty when people just click the, connect. And I'm like, I don't know you. You haven't said hello. It's like walking into a room, throwing your business card at my head and walking straight out. I just think it's rude.
Right,
but that's me. But I think from your standpoint, because of what you're trying to do, I would just have an idea in my mind as to, because your challenges, your clients, you don't necessarily know who they are, because they don't necessarily all have the same jobs. They all have this adventure spirit that they're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've just got to figure out what works for you.
That's good. That's good to know then, because I wanted to know the etiquette of it really before I started doing anything. So yeah, that's good to know.
I always send a message though. So even if someone did connect, because I used to just delete them if they just didn't respond. But I didn't realize that LinkedIn has this limitation that there's only so many people you can message.
Right, I see. Okay.
You know, for free.
Without
so I was
paying,
like, oh, bless.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, bless them. They were over their limit.
Yeah.
So now I just have a little standard message going, oh, hi, thanks for connecting. Was there a particular reason? We've got some mutual, mutual connection.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I try and start a conversation. Otherwise, you just get sold to, and in which case they get deleted very quickly.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to get sold to straight away. No one likes that, do they?
No, they do not. All right. And that's it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. So, what did you think? Did Jack help you to give you some kind of level of comfort that even a mountain climbing adventurous has some level of angst being in front of a camera or communicating as himself with the outside world to market himself and his business, although he seems to have overcome that now. I'm hoping that you're getting from the conversation that if you are a subject matter expert, it's important for you to be able to put yourself out there more so people can get to know who they're actually entrusting with their money and the solving of their particular problem. Or in Jack's case, their actual lives are in his hands in foreign countries and extreme environments. And I think he's reinforced for us as well that, again, being more human works. People choose the people who they can get to know the best and feel a connection with. And Jack knows that it makes a difference for his business to be the one that people talk to before they come on a trip, and that he's the actual person who will be taking them up that mountain. Your reputation, your personality, and how you treat and look after people matters. This is your personal brand, and it's how it shapes itself. Who do you know that could do with hearing Jack's path to shaping his personal brand and recognizable reputation? Go on, share this episode. You know you want to. Until next time, my friends, stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗘𝗟𝗟.com.